At the national level, the middle class is typically defined as households with an annual income ranging between $53,740 and $161,200.
I feel like that's a really big difference. I feel like, bro, that's a big range.
$20.
Yeah.
But middle class
it's literally
Americans
basically
like
a 3x.
Kyle Connolly from Pensacola, Florida, says life has quickly grown unaffordable.
Financially, things have definitely been a struggle for me. I don't know how, but every single month I somehow managed to get by. And I'm left with maybe this past month, I was left with $125 in my checking account, and that's it.
As of June 2024, 65% of middle-class Americans said they were struggling financially and don't expect their situation to improve for the rest of their lives.
That's the part that's really bad. It's not that people are struggling financially. It's that they're struggling financially and there's no light at the end of the tunnel. That's it. You're just stuck here indefinitely, and that's it. There's no hope. And I feel like that's the reason, by the way, that's the reason so many people have adopted these like super extremist political views. It's because a lot of these political views, and this is like extreme right-wing and extreme left-wing politics, I feel like in both cases, they're representative of people that are just fucking fed up with how things are.
A part of the income distribution that has felt a lot of pain in the wake of the pandemic. And it wasn't something that just economists were tracking. It was something that was really felt on the household level. You know, people felt it in their grocery bills. People felt it at the gas pump.
In their own neighborhoods and in their own lives, they have their own expectations for what they can do, where they can go, where they can eat, where they can live. And
this is what's crazy for me, where you can live, is that a lot of my friends that I grew up with that lived in Austin, they now can't afford to live in the houses that they grew up in. Which is like really crazy to think of. Like a lot of my friends have moved out of Austin because of that. It's really bad.
Degree that they're facing those pressures on an individual basis, it really is causing quite a bit of an alarm.
75% of middle-income families say
this is how much of this is because of immigration? Probably like 5% of it. Maybe 10.
Actively cutting back on non-essential expenses, with 73% finding it difficult to save for the future.
I have had to reduce all non-essential spending. I have gotten one haircut because it just got out of control, and that's it. That's all that I can afford.
Jesus.
We can do so much better. To all of you watching, we can get back to an America that's affordable again.
There's a strong role for policy in affecting the prices of all of these essential goods from...
This is the one thing that like a lot of people, and the problem is that if an average person can't afford to like live a life of dignity, they are going to vote for whoever was going to tell them that they're going to be able to do that. And I think that's a big reason why like Trump won the election. It's because I've even seen a lot of like left-wing people, especially like on Twitter, this was super popular, where they were like basically talking down to people that couldn't afford things. And they were like, oh, we'll just get a better job. Oh, well, you know, like you're stupid. That's what you get. And they're like, okay, well, if that's what I get, this is what you get. We're going to go and fucking, you know, vote for this guy that's going to do crazy shit.
Housing, to childcare, to healthcare expenses.
I think there's a lot of scope to have government programs that help the middle class quite a bit more.
So how has the middle class life become so unaffordable for Americans?
It's death by 1,000 cuts. That's the way. Everything goes up by $10 and then you're spending $200 extra. And now you don't have spending money. Like that's the way, that's how it happens. It's not like one thing, it's everything. Like I feel like it's obvious.
It's going to be typically the biggest bite of a household's budget. I think that's probably a primary issue in terms of why people are feeling that crunch.
I am currently renting, and I would say that the housing is probably about 65% of my monthly expenses, where it should be the other way around. It should be 33%.
The median rent for middle-income families has risen by...
Jesus Christ, look at that. Holy fuck.
18%. To $1,300 per household between 2001 and 2022.
Wow. You've just seen this intense upward pressure on the cost of rent, and that filters through.
Rent's too damn high. I've heard that before.
Existing home prices hit a record in June 2024, with existing homes selling at a median price of $426,900.
Jesus.
According to the most
insane.
recent analysis, U.S. is facing a shortage of 4.5 million homes. In 2022, families in the U.S. increased by 1.8 million, but only 1.4 million housing units were built to meet the demand.
It's musical
lots of
chairs.
families who are trying to form, people leave college, they leave their parents' house, they want to buy their own house, and we just haven't seen housing construction.
If you don't build more housing, then housing becomes more expensive, and that's exactly what's happening in a lot of coastal cities and increasingly more and more cities across the United States, so that it becomes very unaffordable to buy a house.
What it amounts to are state and local policies that have really operated over the course of several decades to restrict.
And you have also, here's another factor, is that a lot of the people that are renting and the groups that are renting, what they do is they use a price fixing algorithm that allows them to effectively charge the same price for everything. And it's technically not considered an antitrust violation because they're not doing it consciously and the algorithm is doing it mathematically on its own. So then what ends up happening is that they end up having houses that nobody is in because they're unwilling to take the prices down. I think that another reason why the rent is really fucking high is that you have people that own these houses that are renting them all out at a very high rate. And they're also buying them up as fast as they can. Like, because if you own, like, let's say 50 properties, well, you're going to try to own 51, and you're going to try to own 55 and 60. So it's just like a problem that continuously gets worse over time because it consolidates funds and resources towards the top of people. That's what happens
for existing homeowners.
Add to that we see childcare costs that have also exploded over the years. In some parts of the country, you have households paying upwards of $25,000 per year.
The cost of childcare has risen at more than twice the rate of inflation.
$25,000 a year? Oh my God. Isn't that basically just a monopoly? Yeah.
Increasing by 273% between 1990 and 2024.
We expect these families to go and participate in the labor market, but they need this vital support.
We have a system in the U.S. that is just so much you're on your own, unless you're very, very poor and can get a subsidy.
I'm very fortunate that what I do to earn an income does not require me to have childcare. I would basically be making the equivalent of $7.50 an hour over the summer if I had to pay for full-time childcare for 3 children. It doesn't make sense.
In 2023, 67% of parents reported spending at least 20% of their annual income on childcare, while 89% said they spent 10% or more of their household income on childcare.
We see here is really a marketplace that's still in a bit of disarray.
That's an insane amount of fucking money, man. That's how bad things have gotten? Yeah.
Shortages in childcare centers.
Wow.
We have childcare workers who really report being underpaid, which then exacerbates the problem.
You sometimes have states or localities insisting on regulations that just don't make sense for childcare, that make onerous restrictions on child-to-staff ratios.
Who knows?
Or certain zoning restrictions on where you can have a childcare facility.
And so again, here, there is an opportunity to prop up this labor market and this overall marketplace. We saw some of this effort taking place during the pandemic. In 2021, the United States embarked upon a historic expansion in the refundable child tax credit.
Expanded not just in its generosity, but also in the number of families it reached. It went deep into the middle.
I'm surprised that they don't just try to push more of this, because this is the kind of stuff that I think really matters for average people. And this is the kind of stuff that identity politics kind of overshadows. Because, like, realistically, this is way more important than any of that. But nobody's talking about it at all, because what really matters the most is, like, transgender bathrooms. You see what I'm saying? Like, I feel like these are, like, huge, huge topics. Yeah, I wonder why.
Healthcare is another major factor making the middle-class lifestyle unaffordable for many American families.
This is one of the things that, like, I've said this, like, 10 times, so I'm not going to go through it a lot. But, like, if you're really rich, you can afford to have insurance and you can afford to pay for healthcare. And if you're really poor, you can get healthcare because there's no way they're going to be able to get the money out of you. You just go directly to the emergency room. But, like, if you're in, like, the middle class where you're making, like, kind of enough money, but you're not making enough money to, like, you know, be able to afford good healthcare insurance, and you're not making too little money to be able to qualify for government assistance, you're in like this middle ground where like Medicare costs and like medical costs can be like 50% of your budget. Yeah, they're insane.
In 2021, about 12.4 million middle-class families had unpaid medical bills, the highest among all other income groups.
It's insane.
Healthcare expenses weigh heavily on me because I don't have health insurance personally.
And you can see, right? This is exactly what I was saying. Look at this. This is like the income distribution, you know, like obviously. Like the bottom 20% of people versus the top 20% of people. This is exactly it.
Healthcare expenses weigh heavily on me because I don't have health insurance personally. My children do, but I don't. Every time I sit down to go ahead and look for a health plan that would make sense, I get discouraged because what I can afford has like a $15,000 deductible, but I'm giving them $600 a month.
It's pretty well known by now that if you like compare the U.S. to almost any other advanced country, we spend a ton more on healthcare, and we do not get better health outcomes.
The U.S. spends about $12,742 per person on healthcare, the highest cost per capita compared to other wealthy OECD countries. However, the country still ranks lower on key health measures like life expectancy and infant mortality when compared to similar nations.
I think a lot of it, too, by the way, is diet. It's that people eat garbage here and they don't exercise, and having a healthy lifestyle, like, for example, like being fat is like, in like, I don't know about Japan, right? But I know in China, like, it's just, you know, you get made fun of for being fat. People eat too much? Yeah, exactly. And so at a certain point, it's also cultural. Like, you can't blame all of this on the system. Some of it is absolutely cultural, and it's people's own actions.
More. Doctors cost more, drugs cost more, devices cost more. And that, to me, just seems to be a clear problem of market power in the healthcare sector. And so you've got pharmaceutical companies that unambiguously have market power. That's what patents are. And unlike other countries that really try to leverage some kind of monopsony power against pharmaceutical companies to sort of counter
gaming the U.S. patent system is keeping drug prices sky high. It's insane how people let this happen. Like, and that's the problem. This is the reason why I think that people are like intentionally not educated in schools. It's so they can never figure out that this is happening because they're too stupid to be able to read. So like they never know that this is happening at all. They're just like, oh, I don't know why it's so much money. I don't know.
And research from UCLA revealed that monopoly protection increased consumer costs by $52.6 billion across a sample of 355 brand name drugs.
Wow.
In response to these concerns, the Justice Department launched a task force in May 2024, focused on specifically addressing monopolies and collusion in the healthcare
I'm sure that'll go somewhere.
You want to leverage the power of public buyers of healthcare, you know, to bargain with them and countervail, but then you also want to do antitrust to say, if you're going to buy up every anesthesia.
It's actually really kind of crazy how antitrust problems have become manifest in so many different places. Like, you have it in social media, you're having it in payment processing systems, you're having it in healthcare, you're having it in housing. Like, it's basically what we're seeing is like just a large-scale consolidation that doesn't get ran against, and people don't really try to stop it because they're being paid by the companies.
Anesthesiologist in a given area and start price gouging, we're not going to let you do that. We're actually going to regulate, or we're going to disallow the mergers.
Prices are also rising for essential expenses other than the big three.
The utilities that are just slowly increasing. It's like every month, it's like my usage is down, but why is my bill higher? Obviously, groceries are more expensive. It hurts.
80% of Americans say grocery costs have notably increased. Yeah, it's, I mean, like, it's fucking obvious. I mean, anybody that's been to the store knows this. You guys might not believe me, but I actually go to the grocery store kind of regularly, and I see how much shit is. It's crazy how expensive it is.
It really does hurt when I have to tell my children no. When I have to tell them that, sorry, we can't go to this activity because I don't have the extra $120 to spare this month. As a mother, that's kind of like the hardest part.
Rising prices have been a major talking point for the 2024 election.
For Harris and Trump, focusing on the middle class, speaking directly to promises of building the middle class or rescuing the middle class, these are promises that in some way offer an umbrella pitch for why they are the best candidate for
this is why so many people are for deportations. It's because they think that for better or for worse, you can think this is true or not, they think that because of illegal immigration, this is why it's such a big problem. And that's why I think a lot of people voted for Trump. It's because they see like the cause and effect of allowing illegals into the country. Illegals are in houses. That means I'm not in a house. Illegals have jobs. That means I don't have a job. They're buying stuff. That means the price of stuff is higher. That's what it is. I think that was a huge reason why people voted for Trump. Massive fucking reason. Probably one of the biggest reasons. Well, here's a good example of bullshit pricing. Like, if you go to, like, order something off of a food delivery app, you have a service charge, a delivery charge, and a tip. What's the difference between a service charge and a delivery charge? Isn't the delivery charge the tip? Why do you have a service charge? Isn't the service the delivery? Like, where's the logic here, right? There's 3 extra charges. Yeah, exactly. It's just a fucking scam. And at a certain point, I do feel like it becomes like bad advertising. Yeah, out on the service. Yeah, exactly. Biden said he'd get rid of junk fees too. Yeah, it's crazy how people just don't deal with this.
A lot of boosting the middle class comes down to putting more money in the middle class's wallet.
I have a plan, $6,000 for young families for the first year of your child's life. $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers.
For Trump, he's painting his candidacy as sort of the change campaign. People are sick of the economic status quo, and he wants to be the person to relieve them of the economic pain that he sees as frustration.
I had no inflation, virtually no inflation. They had the highest inflation perhaps in the history of our country.
For him, lowering prices and ending inflation is a matter of
just get rid of inflation
as a whole.
Turn it off.
A lot of his proposals, economists have analyzed and said they could threaten to reheat inflation in the short term. Things like his tariff proposals that would increase producer costs for manufacturers, which could then translate to higher consumer prices.
We're doing tariffs on other countries. Other countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world.
I think that people have, in general, lost a lot of credibility, and they've lost a lot of respect for what would be referred to as experts. Experts say, experts believe, experts, you know, come to a consensus on. And I think that really you can have every expert in the world come together and tell you the economy is good. But if you go to the store and you buy carrots and they're expensive, that's what you're going to care about. You're not going to care about what an expert says. I think the reality is like you can't tell people it's not raining whenever they can just look outside. That's the issue. You say it's not raining, somebody looks outside, it's raining, they're going to think that you're lying to them. And so that's really the problem. And problems have roots that are not addressed properly. Well, I feel like a lot of people blame a lot of the economic problems. I'll link you all the video. Because I feel like this is, in my opinion, I feel like a lot of people don't talk about this in like a way that I think is like fair or it makes sense. And I don't think that they really understand why people feel the way that they feel. I think I understand it, or at least I think I have a better grasp on it than a lot of these like news stations. But, I mean, obviously I can't know what's in everybody's head. But what I see is that a lot of people, they see, you know, like illegal immigrants, or they see people who they don't think should be in the fucking country that are in houses and they're struggling to pay their fucking house and they're mad about it. That's it. Tariffs will cost me $20K more to buy my supplies? Well, I don't know. What's funny is the reason our economy is falling apart is because monopoly has a similar effect on communism. All the markets controlled by just a few, which stifles expansion. Well, the reality is, like, the reason why these companies have monopolies is because the government has allowed it to happen. And this is another little cute trick that companies do, is that companies can, in some cases, push for regulation that require a degree of, like, self-governance that becomes so prohibitively expensive that it pulls the ladder up on anybody who's trying to compete with them in the market. So they effectively use regulation as a way to prevent people from coming into the market. And there are so many of these techniques and tools that people have, and they just don't really understand how it works. Yeah, higher barrier to entry, exactly.